Tulle, Trulle, Mulle and the Humans. I am now going to tell you a story about 3 troll girls named Tulle, Trulle and Mulle. They are 3 troll girls who live deep in the woods together with their troll mom and troll dad in a small cozy troll cave that they have built in the heart of the forest, where there are tall trees and large troll rocks with lots of troll moss on. Now you might wonder what troll rocks and troll moss are, and I will tell you. They are the stones with moss on that look almost alive when you look at them. They may have a face with eyes, nose and mouth, and they have moss on that might look like hair or a beard. Every morning Tulle, Trulle and Mulle woke to the sounds of their troll mom singing in the kitchen while she made breakfast, and their troll dad who came in with branches and twigs which he had gathered in the woods for their small living room fireplace. In this way, the 3 troll girls always woke up with a happy and good feeling in their tummies, and if you are out walking in the woods one day, perhaps with your own mom and dad, and think you hear someone laughing and enjoying themselves in a way that you just know they are having a really nice time, then yes, it's almost certainly Tulle, Trulle and Mulle and their mom and dad. Just outside the forest where Tulle, Trulle and Mulle lived, there was a village where the humans lived. It wasn't a very big village, but they had a small school with a nursery, a church, a petrol station, a grocer's shop, a library, a cafe, and a few small shops where you could buy everything you needed, such as clothing, shoes, toys, and tools. There were children, adults, and old people in the village, but none of them believed that trolls existed. When Tulle, Trulle and Mulle were little troll girls, they didn't know any other places than the troll cave where they lived and the troll forest around them where they used to play. Sometimes they went to visit their relatives in the forest, but it was always with their mom and dad. They loved to see their grandmother and grandfather, aunts, uncles and cousins. When Tulle, Trulle and Mulle were very young, they were always within sight of their mom and dad in the cave, and the 3 troll girls could hear their parents if they called their names. Once though, when they had been playing hide and seek, they had come so far away from the cave that their mom and dad couldn't find them. They had called and had begun to look for the troll girls and become very frightened. When they finally found them, Troll Mom had a stern expression on her face, and when she looked like that, Tulle, Trulle and Mulle knew that it was best to listen. But even though Troll Mom could look stern, she was always kind, and they were never afraid of her. When Tulle, Trulle and Mulle got a little older, they began to go further away from the cave, and it was okay with Troll Mom and Troll Dad, for now they were old enough to look after themselves and find their way back home. Tulle, Trulle and Mulle began to go further and further out of the forest until one day they came to the edge of the forest. That was how they discovered the village where the humans lived. First they were very cautious because they had never seen humans before, but they were also very curious, and after a while they began to go into the village to look around. Now you may wonder how the 3 troll girls could be among people without being seen and without creating a lot of fuss. Most people do not believe that trolls exist, and you may well imagine what would happen if suddenly they could see them. I can imagine that people would probably become very frightened and scared. But let me tell you how this could be possible. You see, Tulle, Trulle and Mulle could make themselves invisible, and then they could see people, but people couldn't see them. Now you may also wonder whether Tulle, Trulle and Mulle are invisible all the time. But no, they are not. It's only when they are with people. Do you know how they can make themselves invisible? I will tell you. At the edge of the forest there is a huge magical Invisibility Stone. Tulle, Trulle and Mulle have named him Mr. Invisibility Stone, and when they put both their hands on the stone and say the magic words, they become invisible. Listen carefully, because here are the magic words that they say. Magic, maho, mamu, metau, let us become invisible now. And hey, presto, all three of them become invisible in a flash. Tulle, Trulle and Mulle learned something new every day that they spent with the people, and one of the funniest things they knew was watching the small humans and what they were doing. They looked at the children when they were in the nursery, in the playroom, on the playground, at the school, in the classrooms, and many other places. They also looked at the people when they were in the shops, at the library, and sometimes they even visited the families in their homes to see what they were doing there. As time went by, Tulle, Trulle and Mulle knew most of the humans in the village, and they became very fond of them. But sometimes the three troll girls saw some things that were not so good, and this was especially when people were not kind to each other. This could be both children and adults. Tulle, Trulle and Mulle were simply not used to it, and they did not know how anyone could behave like that. In the beginning, they got very upset when people were mean to each other, but eventually they got the same stern expression on their faces that Troll Mom could have sometimes. One day, Tulle, Trulle and Mulle were walking home through the forest. They had been out in the schoolyard where three big boys had said something nasty to a little boy who had begun to cry. Tulle, Trulle and Mulle were not used to people saying nasty things to each other, but they could see how upset the little boy was, and there had been no adults there who could help him. If you had seen Tulle, Trulle and Mulle out there on the playground, you would have seen three troll girls who looked very stern. And this was how it all began. You see, Tulle, Trulle and Mulle decided to help the humans a little, both children and adults, if they needed it. Now this might not always be what most people think of as help, but it was simply that some people needed some help sometimes to behave properly. You may well say that Tulle, Trulle and Mulle began to interfere a little in people's lives. And imagine if someone were unkind to you. Would it not have been nice to have three little invisible helpers? Yes, and then almost anything can happen. And this was the beginning of many adventures for Tulle, Trulle and Mulle, and not to mention for the people in the village. Listen carefully, because on the way home through the forest that afternoon, Tulle, Trulle and Mulle began to make a plan. They knew that there was a skeleton inside one of the glass cabinets at the school, and they planned to borrow it for a while the next day. Maybe the three tormentors would get other things to think about than to say nasty things to someone who is younger than themselves.